Right, let's get started. So, right, evening everyone. Welcome to our latest fan Q&A. To give everyone an overview of the format for tonight, we had lots of questions submitted. Lots of them were similar, so we've split them into 4 sections, which are recruitment, some questions on David, the majority shareholder. Then we've got stadium and training grounds, and then some miscellaneous stuff. Guys on the call, as I've said to you just a minute ago, if you want to ask any questions, then just stick your hand up and we'll come to you. And same to people watching along on YouTube. If you've got any questions as well, please submit them via the comments and then we'll come to them. So before we get into the questions, I'll just hand over to Nigel. Nigel, I think you want to say a few words and then we'll get onto the questions.
Yeah, okay. So, George, thank you very much. Good evening to everyone who's on the call here and everyone who's tuning in. We appreciate that. And I would encourage, everyone to do this as often as they can. I've always liked talking to our fans, and thank you for the very good and straightforward questions. We've been through the questions, and I think we have some good answers, but the questions always make us better, so thank you. We'll always try and answer all the questions in as simple and straightforward way as possible. But before I move on to that business, I just want to take a moment to remember Lottie, whose funeral was today. Unfortunately, obviously, I wasn't there. Lottie was not only a joy to have at the club, but a demonstration of the passion of Leyton Orient fans. And I want to thank everyone who attended the funeral today. I believe there was kind of procession past the ground, which I think is highly appropriate. But we have to celebrate the life of one of our own, and Lottie is obviously one whose life we cherish. So let's remember her with great passion. I'd also like to call out all our fans at the start. I'm always amused by where's Nigel Travis been. I went to the UK 16 times last year. And my last visit was to Bolton, where I thought we actually played very well. I won't get into penalties, but, I actually like going to away games for a change. And I continue to come over and see as many games as I can. Before we go into your actual questions, I just want to give you some context. In League One, this is going to surprise you, and I know people take notes and then put it on various media. 15 clubs are up for sale in League One. We are not one. But what's happened is stimulated a lot of discussion amongst all the owners of the clubs, because something is wrong to require 15 clubs up for sale. So we've been working with the EFL, with whom we have a good relationship, and there's various proposals for improving the financial controls. There will be some votes in the next few weeks. We've been very active, but as a small group led by clubs such as Northampton Town, Stevenage, Wimbledon, Barnsley. In fact, the group's chaired by the Indian chairman of Barnsley. And as with many of these things, everyone's got on very well, worked very hard together, but we have to improve the situation in terms of financial controls. And I'm pretty convinced that will happen sometime, probably in time for next season. And that's all linked to something we've talked about many times, that if we get our house in order as a competition, I think we will get redistribution from the Premier League. Standing back from all this, I think the EFL is admired around the world. And it's interesting that the second league in the States, over here in the States, the USL, is moving to promotion and relegation this year. I think they're just following what we do well. And I think the excitement and trepidation of relegation is something that people are very attracted by. I know where we are right now doesn't feel very good, but that's the system. And I think the system overall is very good. And I think it creates the kind of excitement that makes English football so exciting to watch. My final pre-comment is the season hasn't gone as well as we expected. I was expecting to be way up the table. And we're going to get into this. And I just watched Martin's video. He covered many of the same subjects in his video. We're going to cover your questions. I think it's true to say that last year we had some exceptional value from the loan players we had. And we had some trouble replacing that quality. So we'll talk about all that. And I'll pass back to you, George.
Thank you, Nigel. So yeah, the first topic we'll go into is recruitment. It's obviously very topical with the window shutting last night. So first one, Nigel and Steve, I'll come to you on this. So how do we compete with the big spenders and ensure value for money with our transfer dealings?
Okay, so let me just follow on from where I said there's a lot of concern about clubs who are big spenders and smaller spenders about the fact that wages of footballers are kind of out of control. And it's making it a market race to financial jeopardy. And I really think something will get done in the next few months. There are some teams who've paid ridiculous sums over the last 2 years. I mean, we all talk about Birmingham and Wrexham last year. I think it's fair to say that there are some less teams this year, but Cardiff is one that has a very big budget. And I'm going to ask Steve now just to summarise kind of where we stand, because there are numbers that the league sends out that effectively puts the spending in a league position. So, Steve.
Well, without saying too much, there's teams in League One that have come down with parachute payments, and there's Cardiff. There's some big clubs in there. There's not quite Birmingham this year, but there's a couple of teams with budgets around £20 million for playing budgets this year, which would fit around the mid-table championship level. So that's the kind of level we're competing at. So it's vital we get value for money from the players we recruit. Otherwise, we can't compete up the table.
Thank you, Steve. Nigel, I'll come back to you for the next one. I mean, you said it yourself a minute ago, the season hasn't gone as we wanted it so far. So what are the ambitions? What's the ambition for the club? I guess short term and then more medium, long term.
Well, where we are is to get up the table ASAP, and the window was done with that in mind. We don't like being 18th. It's disappointing, but we have faith in Richie as our head coach. But we felt that we needed to improve the playing squad. But going beyond this year, we want to be a sustainable championship club with our own training ground and own stadium. We will talk about the stadium later. We'll talk about the training ground later. We also need you to understand that we've increased the average playing budget by 50% in the last 2 seasons. And during this window, David put more money into the club. And if there's one thing I didn't like about the questions was some of the implicit criticism of him, but I'll come back and answer that in the appropriate manner later. We are absolutely frigging lucky to have someone like David Gandler at Leyton Orient. I mean, he's not only a great human being, but he's a person who cares about Leyton Orient and has a clear vision for the future. Having said that, we have a very rigorous budget process, and every signing that we make before the season or during this window, we go through as a check and balance, and we make sure that Richie agrees with every single player who's bought in. So it's a complete process. We don't always get it right, but I can tell you that we put the funds in to make sure we can be competitive in a very difficult situation.
Thank you, Nigel. Lingy, I'll come to you next. It's a very busy day yesterday with, I think it was 9 in total, wasn't it? 5 came yesterday. There was a bit of frustration amongst fans around the timing it took on in some positions. Why was that, do you think?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Nigel said about Lottie. I actually was at the funeral today, and it was unbelievable to see fans, staff, directors, including Matt Porter, a lady's funeral, but she fully deserved that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of in the goalkeeper situation, there's a little bit of criticism. Once Simkin went back, White's took so long to replace him. The simple answer is that we always wanted a standout number one to come in to be a better and than Killian. But when I'm saying better, a more number one goalkeeper that's got pedigree. And to start with, there was many like Killian that were young goalkeepers. Killian, remember, was brought in as a number two. You know, obviously a number two can make a number one because Josh Keeley was brought in as a number two last year. So it can happen, but we didn't want to take the risk of going with what we see number two goalkeepers and let them fight for the number one spot. We wanted to try and fetch a number one that was clear, that we thought was, had the pedigree. So hence that opportunity come with Backman. And then when you know the story with Backman in terms of never, he done his injury in the warm up, and so then it was a case of where do we go from here? Me and Richie was sitting there at 10-3 talking about Backman actually when Keaton come and told us. So yeah, we've come up with solutions with Will, Dennis, and Toby. I am going to try and say his second name. Yemi, that's him. And look, it's sometimes it's about timing. It's pointless. I look beyond the next 3 or 4 games. When you look at the start of January, we was winning games or drawing games. We drew a game against Cardiff. We beat. Was it Reading? We beat, not Reading. Who did we beat? 3-1 at home.
Reading. Yeah, Reading.
Yeah, sorry, Reading. Yeah, and Killer was in goal for both them games, and there was no problem with Killer at that stage from the fans or from anybody. So that gave us a little bit of breathing space. Then obviously the results went downwards, and people say you waited too long. That's not true. We waited for the right person, and the right person come at the right time. And sometimes it won't always feel or fall when you want it to fall. So it's really a case of supply and demand and the right person being there, if I'm totally honest, George.
In terms of a couple of the other positions, we obviously got James. I think that was pretty much out in the media all month, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, James Morris, to start with, James Morris was a player we tried to bring in the summer. We got pushed off the scent right near the end by Watford. They wanted to keep him after all telling us all the time they was going to let him go. And then when it came available again, they said he's definitely available. We've had a deal on the table for James for the last 3 weeks. That's all been agreed, and it was about Watford finding another left back before they let James out. So eventually they got that, and that all comes to fruition yesterday. But it was a patient game. We had to make sure, but again, if we want to make improvement, sometimes we have to make sure that we wait for the right people to come. And James, as I say, has always been there for us as a left back that we felt can come and improve us after having Teo, as a lone left back. So yeah, James will improve us. And say in terms of players, it's all about, again, with timing. It's if to get the right ones, sometimes they come instantly. Sometimes they take a bit of time, and you have to weigh it up. Is it worth waiting? And I feel for both Backman and for Morris, it was definitely worth waiting.
Thank you, Lingy. I'll stay with you for this next one. So I had a couple of fans asking around scouting and where we scout for players. One question in particular said, why do we hardly ever sign any players from League Two, the National League? And then there was a separate question about the Irish leagues as well. Are they divisions we're across?
Yeah, I mean, if I just tell you how I think the best thing to say here first is that how the recruitment is set up now to what it's been before. When we first come into the building 9 years ago, it was me and Steve Foster. That was our recruitment team. It currently sits at, you got Dan McClune, Joe Austin, and Steve Foster, all full-time members of staff. You've got 4 part-time scouts that cover certain parts of the country. We've now got 4 video scouts that watch 3 games or 4 games a week. So we've got a more extensive recruitment team. So there's more and more that goes into this. We look everywhere. We don't. The problem sometimes with League Two is if a League Two player is showing out and we think, oh, he's going to come in and do well in League One, you're going to be first thing you're going to do is be paying a transfer fee. So the minute you put a transfer fee, which we're not against because we've done it with other players, but 9 times out of 10, the other clubs that are taking notice of said player. So the transfer fee is there. And sometimes when the transfer fee comes in and you've got a wage, you have to weigh up whether if the transfer fee, say the transfer fee is $250,000 and you're giving the boy a 2-year contract, you've got to put that $250,000 on top of his wages. So instead of, let's say it could be a $4,000 a week player, but if you put that $250,000 on a 3-year contract, it becomes a $7,000 a week player. So that's the type of stuff. And I think that, we do cover leagues. It's any top 10 players in Ireland. Again, it's one of the leagues that we cover on our recruitment tool. But it's not for we don't want to go there. It's just that we don't think the answers are there, or if they are there, we haven't dipped into it at this moment in time.
Lovely, thanks, Lee. Nigel, I'll come to you for the next one. We had a few questions around why didn't we sign players with more experience in the summer window and this January window?
Okay, so it's a good question. And I think I agree with the tone of it. We brought in a number of players. We brought in some younger players. We, as I said at the start, tried to replace the loan players who were very successful last year, Charlie Kelman, etc. And as I said at the start, it's been difficult. And some of it's worked out really well. I mean, when you think about who we brought in the summer, Aaron Connolly, I think most people would agree, has been fantastic. Idris El Mazouni, similarly. And then obviously Don Ballard has been a super success. So I think there's a tendency for people to sort of say the summer window wasn't successful. But we lost 2 of those 3 players very unfortunately early in the season. The good news is we hope both of them will be back in March. So that should help us a lot. What I'd say is we had a meeting to talk about this very subject. I think it was in like October. And we talked about how we needed a bit more experience, a bit more character. And we've actually talked about improving our recruitment process to start doing, if you like, character testing as well. And Dan's working on that. So I agree with the ethos of the question. And I think when you look at the people we brought in this window, James Morris, which, as Martin said, took far too long, but that wasn't, if you like, our fault. Dylan Levitt was someone we wanted to sign in the summer, but his expectations were higher than we were willing to go at that time. And Will Forrester is kind of experience that we want. I would also, they're in the mid-20s. I'd also add that we thought on Friday and Saturday morning, Dan Backman was going to really, I mean, if there's one player who's made a great effect on the club, it's him. He hasn't played a minute for the club, but the impact he had on the squad on Friday, Saturday morning was fantastic. I mean, it really uplifted everyone. He had the experience, the kind of character that we were looking for, and he summed up what we were looking for. And none of us, including me, could believe what happened. But I think we've tried to remedy that situation, and we've remedied it well.
Thank you, Nigel. Lingy, I'll come back to you for the next one. So we've touched on last season's loans. many of which came on loan from Premier League clubs. What are our relationships like with Premier League clubs?
Yeah, good. You know, we're pretty much get on with most Premier League clubs. If I'm honest with you, it's just where the players fit. You know, we've had players from most of them. Obviously, we had the two from Spurs last year that were sensational, but there's a bit of luck and chance in this, and this is what I'm going to say about it. And I don't care what he said. And that's on any signing. You try and take away the luck and chance, and you're trying to make it as near as an exact science as you can. Jack Keeley last year come in, as I said earlier, as an absolute number two. An absolute number two, and then he took off. If I told you what money he was on, he wasn't even on four figures. That's what I'm going to say to you in terms of a loan fee. And he come and had it off. And Donnelly, everyone talks about Jamie Donnelly being this superb player. People forget that he was left at home for two squads because he couldn't get the pace of the game with Richie. Tottenham were moaning at us about leaving him to train in a park when we travelled away, which wasn't true. We just had to train on your own because we had no coaches to train him. And then he come good. So there goes a bit of luck. Obviously, with Curry and Kelman, I think that they were a little bit more, especially Kelman. He was obviously been with us before, tried and tested. But the system that we work on is the same system. The system that bought them 4 players last year bought the 5 players this year: Simkin, Adamora, White, Lloyd, and Morehouse. Now, 3 of them didn't work in terms of as good as them ones we had before. Simkin, Adamora, and White, if we're honest, didn't work for us. Lloyd got pulled back from us, and Morehouse was called back by Man United. But none of them had the impact of the ones above. Now, we've moved again into the loan market, and we hope that the ones we fetch in are going to have the impact of the 4 last year. But when you're taking young loan players, there's always a risk. But if you get 4 like we did last year, what it makes is the squad so much stronger, because the players that would be playing, if they wasn't in the building, all of a sudden we go onto your bench. So there is in all of this, you try to take the element of luck out of it, but there is that in it, and the process that we did with the 4 of last year was done again, and it ain't worked out the same way. So sometimes you have to take but we've moved to rectify that. And if you look at the window, it's been 9 and 9. Actually, me and Jules went through it today. There's 9 come in and 9 gone out. So there's been a big change around. And yesterday there was actually 8 deals that went down in one day, which is a summer's work. So it was interesting. Anyone who was there, George, Steve, see what it was about. We had people on different floors, people in different medicals. We had, oh my God, Lindsay Martin was absolutely superb, but we got it done. And as I said in the interview earlier, and if you listen to the interview, one thing about being a director of football, or a football coach, a football manager, head of media, a chairman, or a supporter, it's always easier to do it when we're being successful. What we need people to do, and I said this in the interview, is that this is the part where you really show what you're about as the supporter and as a member of staff. Whatever we do at the club, this is the time that we all need to pull together to make sure that we start pushing up that table, because we're better than where we are. Are we disappointed? Yes, we are. Can we rectify it? Yes, we can. Do we believe in Richie and the coaching staff? Yes, we do. So, as I say, there's been a lot of work done. And this was, there's been more money pumped in, as Nigel said. Our budget this year is the biggest it's keep going.
Actually listened to the Burton guys on the and give them the opportunity to grow. Potentially we can sell them, develop, stay with us. But I think you need a blend, which was kind of where I was in the previous question. And I think we've now achieved that blend in this window.
Thank you, Nigel. Lingy, come back to you. So if the worst was to happen and we were to be relegated, do players have clauses in their contracts?
Yeah, so if I can if I'll give you an insight in terms of, sorry, George, was the second part of that question?
It was, do they have clauses in the contract that will release them for free or kick in pay cuts?
No, yeah, there's not clauses in contracts that release any player if you go to relegation in the Football League. This is against the rules to do that. What if you see where League One and you draw League One down the middle on say someone's on a 3-year contract, he'll have 3 figures of this year, next year, and the year after, whatever they may be, and then whatever league you can play in during that 3 years. So it could be League Two and the National League. There'll be figures in there, and there'll be Championship and Premier League figures. So whatever league you can play in during the length of that contract will have a figure in there. We work off of a percentage down. We work off, and if you go down to the National League, there's another percentage down, and obviously we work on a percentage up into the Championship and up to the Premier League. Them ones are bigger if we get to the Championship, and obviously we got to the Premier League, the figure is bigger, but all eventualities are covered. So, I think people learn from when I was at Swindon Town a long time ago in '93. We went up to the Premier League. I'm not saying that because I want to be boast, but I had a contract that went up as the club went down. So we went down to Champ and we went down to League One, and the figures in the contract still went up. Hence, Swindon went bust, and this rule was brought in off the back of the Swindon contracts and other people that don't cover. So every contract has a table in it that gives you a guide to what people will earn in certain leagues, George.
Okay, thank you for that, Lingy. I'll stay with you for the next one, Lingy, so this is another loan related one, which you've kind of covered already, but in terms of bringing in players, where do loans rank? Like, do we go out and prioritise loan players or prioritise permanent, or a bit of a combination?
No, to be honest with you, we've talked. I know this sounds a stupid thing to say after having 5 loans last year, and then we've had 5, and then we've bought another, 4 is it in? Ideally, I would come away from 5 loans and try and get to 3 loans, if I'm honest. And we tried that this year. We wanted to fetch a permanent goalkeeper in. We ended up taking Simkin because we couldn't find the permanent goalkeeper of the quality that we wanted. And all the bits about Simkin being England under 21, every box in Simkin. This is where it's a bit of a gamble. Simkin, if you ticked a tick box exercise and you had done it with Simkin, every box was ticked. With Josh Keeley, probably 2 boxes out of the 10 boxes were ticked, and Josh Keeley's ended up a better goalkeeper than Simkin when he's at Leyton Orient. So we cover all areas, George, but we do. If I could edge the loan scenario down by 1 player or 2 players going forward, I would rather that, because it's a very volatile market in terms of the chances of failure is as high as the chances of success. I think it just is, because most of loan players are going to be young, and young players sometimes on a first or second loan, you just don't know how it's going to take. So I would like to take that volatile scenario out by trying to get more signed players, and it's something that we've talked about, and with the new recruitment team we're looking into for, you know, starting next year, to go with less loans if we can, because of it's volatile.
Thanks, Lingy. Nigel, I'm going to combine two questions next for you. So the first one is, what have we learned from the summer window, and the January window? Because there's been some frustration from Richie. What's going to change going forwards? And are we going to prioritise signing an experienced goalkeeper on a long-term contract?
Okay, so I think Martin's already touched on some of this, but we've been after an experienced goalkeeper for 2 years, and that is the priority, and will start as a priority today into the summer window. We've obviously brought one goalkeeper in who could be a candidate. Clearly, as Martin said earlier, Will Dennis, I could categorically say, won't be with us after the summer. We think we're lucky to get him. He's, as I had clearly explained to me yesterday, as a minimum, a championship goalkeeper. So if he plays in the near future, we should feel very happy. But we want to get an experienced goalkeeper. I won't go into all the whys and wherefores of goalkeepers, but they are a difficult breed, and there's only one or two agents who cover them, which makes life difficult. But we fully agree with the nature of the question. I think we've learned we need, as I said before, experience and character. We're going to focus a lot more on character going forward. We actually think that in the window we brought some people in who are going to provide that spine in terms of character. I mean, I think we've got two goalkeepers that will do that. And I just want to talk about what Keelan Cahill, or as Dave Victor says, Cahill. I think we put him in a difficult position. He's reacted very well to sometimes Richard's criticism, sometimes fans' criticism, and he's going to be a good goalkeeper down the road. And Martin's had a long talk with him. I've had a long text communication with him, and he's mature enough to understand that you learn from these experiences. So I want to give him the praise he deserves, because he does deserve it for doing more than we ever expected. So I think it's really down to character and experience. I'm not sure you actually said this, but it was in the question. Richie seems frustrated. Well, we all get frustrated, and how many of us have to talk about our jobs as soon as we finish the day on national TV? Not many of us. By the way, I don't talk to Richie for 3 hours after a game, and it's amazing. He seems very calm 3 hours after a game compared with some of the interviews. But we should feel lucky. We got a manager who cares. He gets passionate. And yeah, sometimes he says things I think he wishes he hadn't said. But I'd rather have someone like that than some of the other boring managers I have to listen to. Did I answer all the questions there, George?
George, I'll just add one thing. I think we knew the answer before the summer even began, that the level of squad turnover we've had to do this year isn't conducive to success every year. So I think now we're in a much better place. We've got a lot more contracted players for next season. It puts us in a much better place to start next season stronger and kick on from there. We've not had that for 3 years in a row, I think.
Thank you, Nigel and Steve. So last one we've got on recruitment. I mean, this was submitted a couple of weeks ago, so we may have answered this already. But Lingy, I'll come to you for it. So defending set pieces has been frustrating so far this season. What's being done about this? And centre backs have been referenced as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite agree in terms of last year. The three promoted clubs conceded fewer goals than us. Only the three promoted clubs, so we felt strong in that area. So we do more work actually, because in terms of set plays, defending and attacking, which is me and Nigel's individual bugbear that we talk about ourselves sometimes, in terms of we feel we can do better with them. I don't believe that there's any difference in terms of the players we signed being good enough or bad enough. I think it's just about a mentality of defending set plays and also the attacking set plays as well, and the delivery from set plays. The output compared to last year is down, and so there's we've conceded more obviously, and we ain't scored as many. So, but the work is going on them in terms of what we do to plan and put them on. I'm not at the training ground all the time, but I'm always there a day before a game, so I see what goes on in terms of video work that's done on the training pitch to make it better. So it is a mentality thing. It definitely is in terms of set plays. So I don't think that, again, we've got new players that have come in now, so it has been rectified in some respect. I think also, I do believe a goalkeeper that is of more experience straight away, from me personally, not just that he will stop more from the set plays, but I think he will also help the organisation in terms of where players should be. The goal on Saturday, for instance, if I could go through it and I had a video in front of you now, it was about one player ending up in the wrong spot because he shouldn't have been marking the player that was on the goalkeeper. So then that set off a domino effect of two other players being in the wrong position. Now, if I think, for me, if we had a senior goalkeeper that's just done the set plays with you, he tells that player that's marking the player on the goalkeeper to F off and do his job and leave that man to himself. So there's a bit of everything. I think it comes down to the goalkeeper, the defensive unity, but it certainly don't come down to organisation of what we do for them. But we say sometimes, well, it is, me and Nigel talk about it all the time because it's so important. Look at Arsenal. Everyone says Arsenal are boring shit team because they're winning the league on set plays. So be it. They are very good at them. So it's something that we need to improve. But as I say, there's probably more work done on it this year, but the output is not as good as last year.
Yeah, again, George, I'll just add. I was speaking to Maka about this recently. I think at the start of last year, we looked at the data. I think I can't remember the exact number, but as a general rule, if you concede fewer than 13 set pieces and score more than 16, you're more or less likely to go up. And we did a great job last year. I think 23-24, we first got promoted. We conceded 23 from memory, so we're worst in the league, and we got that down to 12 last year. I think that's right, about 12. So we did a fantastic job there. We didn't score enough. We scored about 11 or 12, but we were very close and we were tight at the back. So I know the guys are working hard to try and put it right again this year, but we did a lot of work last year to put it right.
Lovely. Thanks, chaps. Other guys on the call, did you have anything recruitment related you wanted to ask? Craig, you see you've got your hand up. Far away.
Thanks, George. Evening, guys. Just going back to probably a much earlier point, I think Nigel mentioned around Richie agreeing to the signings that come in. It's just probably probing a little bit more on that in terms of kind of his involvement. So I think you said kind of Morris and Levitt had been on the radar for a little while. You know, they look like solid enough signings. So hopefully they kick on. But I suppose just testing, apart from those ones that you've named there, testing maybe a couple of the others that have come in the last day or so. you know, how far in advance is Richie aware of those names? So, you know, for example, AJ, I know he came in a few weeks ago. Faber came in yesterday. How far in advance is he aware of these targets? Is he aware of all of them, or are some of them kind of, you know, landed, and then it's kind of, do you want them or not? And are there any were there any other kind of options on the table? Does he have a say between a few different players for each position? Sorry, rambled a little bit there, but hopefully you got the gist.
I mean, I'll take that, Nigel, if you don't mind. I mean, Richie, there's never been a football player that's come into this football club that Richie Wellens doesn't want. He has to say. I mean, there's a lot of myth about me having the final say on players or the recruitment team. I mean, it's never been true. It has never. I mean, I could sit Richie next to me now. Richie has the final say on every single player. So when it comes to the recruitment, now there may be, we've got a recruitment team that might put 5 or 6 players in front of Richie, but when it comes down to it, there has been the odd occasion where me and Richie sit down together because we can't make our mind up, and then we have a discussion, and then it's so 50-50. He might say, "Go on, you call on this one," and I might call, you know, or he might. But 9 times out of 10, or 10, well, yeah, 9 times out of 10, Richie makes the final decision. Richie's fully aware. I mean, let's be honest about it. The situation yesterday, in terms of players coming in, some of it was done very microwave. I'm gonna sit here and lie, because we needed, especially the goalkeepers, you know. But the other people have been on our list, and Richie, in all of them signings yesterday, Richie had the final say on Dylan. He knew about Jane Morris, Faber, Toby, Will Dennis. Richie had the final say on all of them. So Richie sometimes, as Nigel says, Richie sometimes gets frustrated after games and gets frustrated of why we haven't signed a goalkeeper quicker or left back quicker. He's just lost the game of football. And he knows the answer. He can tell you the answer himself, because the fact is he knows exactly what we're doing to get the goalkeeper and how hard we're working. But he gets frustrated, and sometimes I think Richie's strength sometimes is his weakness as well. I'm going to be honest with you, and he knows I say this sometimes to him, is that he knows exactly what's going on, and he just lets his, as Nigel said, his caring side of wanting to win, you know, come out to say, why don't we got a goalkeeper? Why haven't we got left back? And he knows the answer, because he's been part of the scenario from the very, very minute we started it. So look, it's me and Richie. I've had working relationships with all the managers here. I have the best working relationship. There's 2 people that I've had the best working relationship with. Richie and Justin Enderberg have been the 2. So it's a decision that he would always have the final say on the player. As I say, there may become one where we just can't make a mind up, and he'll go on, who do you really fancy out of the 2? And that may be sometimes me saying, because we can't make our mind up. And they ain't perms. Trust me, that's a loan signing. So that's the answer to that.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, appreciate that. If I can be really cheeky, just a real quick fire one, just while we're still on recruitment. In terms of Backman coming in, a few, you know, people obviously been, you guys have got control of the finances, but fans still query around kind of money going out of the club. But Backman was signed, and then has suffered a really serious injury. A lot of people are asking the question around, are we able to kind of send him back and therefore not pay for the wages, or are we committed to him?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've signed a contract for him to be with us to 30th of June. The fact he's got injured playing for us, we've still got to pay for him. There's no, because he can't play. To be fair to, if you looked at that deal, if I explained that deal to you, what's the name of the club in Spain, George? He was at
Deportivo.
Yeah. So he was out there, and there was a loan fee that was split in two between the first 6 months and the second 6 months. So Watford had received the first half of the loan fee, but they said to us, if you get agreement with Deportivo of paying some of the second half of the loan fee, as long as we get the same money, we'll let it happen. So that's what happened. We struck a deal in, well, it was in euros actually, which was quite interesting. Our first deal in euros, but it was in euros that we paid towards them. But Watford ain't going to come down because they would have got all of the loan fee if he stayed at Deportivo. What's he got? George, what's the name of the team?
Deportivo.
Yeah. So no, there's no return to us because he's got injured. Unfortunately, we took up the second half of the option with the Spanish side.
But on the positive side, he's a great influence to have around the dressing room. If his treatment is to be here, we're going to have a positive, experienced guy there as part of it. And I have seen online, he did have an injury in his ankle. I think he was at Watford second half of last season. This is completely separate. The other foot, the other ankle, it was screened and scanned and checked. There's just a complete freak accident that could happen to anyone. So it's incredibly unfortunate he was gutted, and it was incredibly unfortunate timing being so soon for kickoff. But the worst possible combination, really feel for him.
Yeah, also with him as well. He's only been with us for 2 days, but he's had that big of influence, as Nigel said. I think he's going to want to come and do his recovery with us, which is we would encourage that because we're paying for him anyway. So it looks like he's going to, once he gets uply mobile and can start driving again, I think he's going to come and do his recovery with us, if I'm honest with you, which I'm pleased by, really, because he was such a good character.
I'm just very conscious of time. David, Heavy D, do you want to quickly go, and then Jack will come to you, and then we'll have to move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's a two-part question really regarding the outgoing part of recruitment. Obviously, we know that Omar and Zek have left the club on permanent and loans, but they seem to have took quite a while to organise. Just wondering why it took so long for 2 players that weren't even playing in the first team at the time to get them sort of to their new clubs, and obviously help Zek with his development that will hopefully benefit us in the future. And the second bit was, are we not, Martin, are you not a little bit concerned that all of our loan signings that have gone back, bar Jack Morehouse because he went back so late, have seemed to have gone to either our rivals in the division that are trying to get out of League One the same way we were last season. And in Tommy's case, he's gone back to Stoke and he seems to be their number 1 goalkeeper now. I know Bazunu obviously was supposed to be, but he's been injured. So,
yeah, the answer to no, I'm not worried, because if Tommy was called back, we didn't send him back, so he's gone to Stoke and played for Stoke. So we had no choice in that. Teo's gone to the Championship, but let's be honest about it, he ain't really gone to a Championship club that he's got the Sheffield Wednesday who are already down, and they just need players to fill the numbers up. And I'm not having to go at Teo. That's just the truth about Sheffield Wednesday. White went out, has gone back out to, where did White go? Bradford. Yeah, he started first game, has been subbed to second game. Look, if we make a choice that they're not the right people for us, and we didn't make the choice, Simpkin wasn't chosen, Lloyd wasn't chosen, but Teo was chose to go released. He's gone Sheffield Wednesday. People say, he's gone to Championship, but I think I explained why. White's gone to Bradford and Morehouse ain't gone out. So there's no worry from my side of things. And in the Beckles and the Berio, the two things really. Beckles, it's been getting the finances sorted, if I'm honest with you. You know, when you start to decide that a player's going to be leaving, and then maybe a contribution from us, he's only going to go to another football club when everything's agreed. So he's got to have something to go to on top of what we're going to give him to go. So that's why that took so long. And Iberio, as I just said, it's the right club. We've finally got the right club. Richie's been saying for 18 months now, no, this season, that Zach needs to go out and go and play 20 games because he gets into our team. I think he's going to be a top player, and so does Richie, but he needs to go through the system of 20 games. So I don't think it's too late for Zach to go out. I think it's good timing, actually.
And then Jack, just very quickly coming to you before we head on to the next topic.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Just in regards to the goalkeeping position, because as you remember rightly, Martin, back in the 2005 events, we were well profiled with the likes of Glenn Garner, who performed exceptional for the club, and of course established himself having, gaining international caps, and then likes of loan keepers as Jakubovic and of course Josh Keeley as well. So dipping into the loan market has proven to be fortunate over the seasons that have gone by. However, given since Vigaroo's departure to Swansea a couple of seasons ago, or might be more than that, does Royce have a strong sort of goalkeeping union across the leagues in terms of working with Steve Foster and the scouting panel in terms of what? Because for example, you had Luke Southwood, which transferred from Bolton to Bristol Rovers in the summer, to which I thought would have been potentially, being a young goalkeeper who was quite experienced for his age. Was we ever in like for him potentially?
No, he wasn't one on our list. If I'm honest with you, I ain't going to tell a lie. But going back to the Royce situation, when I say Richie has the final say on every player that comes in, that's not true, because Royce will have the final say on the goalkeeper. Richie will be part of the process. I'll be part of the process, but me and Richie will be the first people to tell you that we ain't expert goalkeepers. So Royce has. No. Yeah, Royce has a massive say. It'd be madness to. It's totally different to outfield players, in my opinion. So Royce is a big part of our recruitment because he needs to be. Any goalkeeping coach at any club would be, in my opinion. We will be.
Yeah, it just seems to be over the seasons that have gone by. I mean, with Keeley, with the exception, we've never really over the few seasons had a keeper that's been very vocal and what's the word? Say commanding, sort of keep instructing the back line and that, because you can see it over the course of this season, and that where the back line basically folded, and then unfortunately we've been capitulated, where teams have exposed where we haven't got a senior goalkeeper, as we've mentioned already on the call. So hopefully with the new ones which have come in, of course, can provide more competition, of course, grow confidence.
Yeah, I think that I do. If you go back 2006, when you talk about Glenn Garner and you talk 20 years on now, I'd be careful with the vocal side of it, because every footballer that I've ever met in them 20 years has gone quieter. If I'm honest with you, I think it's just the human race. I know that sounds stupid, because the kids are on their phones, but whatever you're going to talk. So yeah, but I do, like since Viggs, you had Keeley, but it's a bit of a needle in an haystack. I know that sounds ridiculous, and sometimes you need it's a domino effect with the goalkeepers, and we're fell on our feet sometimes. But I do believe if we could get a senior, it would be better for everybody concerned.
I'm going to have to jump in there, chaps. Just very, very conscious of time. So let's move away from recruitment now. Had a few questions on David. So Steve, I'll come to you, and I'll combine a couple of questions actually. So a few fans have said we don't tend to hear too much from David other than about the new stadium. Why is that? And then secondly, what's his motivation for the new stadium?
All right, okay. I feel a bit sorry for David. Nigel alluded to it at the start of the call. I think David's been maybe typecast a little bit as an American that just cares about American football and the new stadium and doesn't care about Leyton Orient. I had 2 phone calls with David last week. One of them was about and if he didn't care about the team in this moment in time. Stadium project, so that's why his name's attached to a lot. What's his motivation around the stadium?
Yeah.
I think that's probably an inference around American football, because of the American football announcement a few weeks ago. I think that's just timing. So we're not at the stage now where we can show designs of the new stadium. We're close. So I've seen some photos, and it's a bespoke football stadium for Leyton Orient. It's built for football. I think if fans had seen that and know about the sites, and then afterwards had been told there's going to be supplementary events in and around the football calendar, which will help pay for football, like with Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, etc. That'll make a lot more sense and be fine. But I think it's just timing, because American football's come first, and that makes people think it's a generic stadium for all events. But no, I think it's a bit unfortunate, if I'm honest. But no, David's motivation is to help Leyton Orient kick on as much as possible.
So let me jump in here, because I do get a bit irritated about this. Firstly, we were very fortunate to find David. We went through a process, we found him, and he's been better than what we expected. Two, we can't carry on when we're selling out most times in a stadium that is old. We need to look forward. And when David came in, it was agreed that I'd do a minimum of 2 years as chairman, and that I would run the football club. David, as Steve just said, does get involved. And I think there's also a view that David's just interested in American football. Well, he and I had an interesting discussion. He actually thinks I know more about American football than he does. So David is trying to build a stadium, arena, and we do know where it's going to go. We're just not revealing it. We've got great cooperation with Waltham Forest, and this is the future of Leyton Orient. So I think, I for one think that we've managed to save the club, move forward 9 years. David is looking forward. He spends a lot of time on it. As a public CEO, I'm surprised he has as much time as he does to spend on it. So I think we should all be clapping David and saying thank you for your involvement. Thank you for everything you're doing. And, Steve had 2 meetings with him last week. I probably had about 5. And every time I go to New York, I sit down with him because it works out very conveniently. So we're very, very lucky. And I'll come back to what I said before. All these other clubs are desperate to sell. We are not one of those clubs. David is funding it. He put more money in. And I don't think I need to say any more. We're in a very fortunate situation.
Thank you, Nigel. A couple of fans have said they feel like the club hasn't been as transparent in the last 6 months or so. What would you say to that?
Okay, so I would say I disagree, but I'd also say I agree. So that's shows how contradictory I am. George, I think this is true. I would do these like every month if I could, because I believe there's a lot to say, and I think we should increase it. So I kind of agree and don't agree again, but let's do more. I think we tell you everything that's important. I think all the interviews that George organises tells you a lot about football, probably more than we ever did in the early days of our ownership. So we'll take that on board and make sure that as we go forward, we continue to be as transparent as I believe we need to be.
And we've tried to do more this year, with the quarterly board update, etc. And we've got the new fan advisory board, which will be opening up applications for quite soon. So hopefully they're making step forwards in that.
Guys in the room, any questions on David, Craig?
Yeah, thanks, George. Yeah, so it's great to hear on the stadium and the progress there, and around finding a site and some images going around. It's really exciting. I'm glad to hear that's progressing. When we think kind of supporters might get some eyes on that, I think maybe couple of months ago, we were talking about maybe kind of in the first couple of quarters of this year, or by maybe the midpoint of this year, there might be some comms on it. I just wondered what we're thinking roughly.
I think we're on track to achieve that. I mean, there's a process that I'm not day-to-day involved in it, because, so you know, I've got like four other businesses I'm involved in. But I focus on Leyton Orient and football. You could say I'm not doing a very good job at the moment, but anyway, you know, we're kind of pleased with our attendances, but I think we're completely on track to do that. And I think we're also on track, which I think is coming up later, to identify, doesn't mean we get it, identify a training ground that we can develop. Steve's been working on that in the last week. Mark happens to be on vacation at the moment. So I think we're making real progress on the stadium, real progress on the training ground. And I think there's a question here about, we talk about, you know, hitting the 9,000 mark. If I had to say what is my biggest bug about English football, is that all the problems from the 1970s and 80s have got rules that don't exist in America. And some of the safety rules, in my view, and I stress my view, go beyond what I see over here. So we have to separate the fans. We can't have alcohol. A lot of stuff prevents us having more revenue through our stadium. But I think the answer is to move to the new stadium, as we said before.
Thanks, Nigel. Steve, did you want to add anything on timeline of?
Yeah, I can talk about the training ground a little bit. It's early stages in a way, but it could move quite quickly. So I can't say too much at this stage. But in at the current stage, we've got a great relationship with Chigwell School. We share pitches on some of their lands. We both acknowledge that we probably need more space than they can provide us. So, but we've got a comfortable relationship with them right now. But acknowledging that we probably need to look to move out in the foreseeable future. So hopefully we'll have some updates on that fairly soon. It's just, yeah, it's a critical point now where we can't say too much at it, and it's difficult to put a timeline on it.
Jack, do you want to come in with your question?
Yeah, just too quickly from me. I mean, going point to in regards to the communication from David, I mean, of course, with the transparency, from a fan's perspective, the information shared on this call is obviously positive almost. But it's just more so with sort of on the match day where you don't hear sort of get roughly sort of input from. So of course over the years, yourself, Nigel, and Kent and that have been very forthcoming in person and making yourself known amongst the fan base on a match day. I think it's just more so that if there was more communication from David, or perhaps a presence, granted he's got a business, so we don't expect him to drop everything, but I think it's more so like a physical presence just on a match day, just to feel involved, because if he as he's a majority investor, to obviously be involved. And secondly is in regards to the stadium and the of course it will, as you said, Steve, it will be primarily based around a football based venue or location. Granted, I suppose the likes of Tottenham in terms of multi-avenue revenues, and so for when non-match days, particular events that can sustain and then of course give us a bit of a buffer, so then we're not effectively hitting the red zone each season like every football league club does as such. So is that, I know you can't obviously say much in regards to the training ground, and of course we're thankful to Chigwell, but lastly, I'm guessing there's just too much due diligence with Waltham Forest and surrounding sites which are potential.
Okay, let me just talk about that. Firstly, Waltham Forest have been fantastic, and our MP has been fantastic. The Mayor's office of London has been fantastic. Everyone wants this to happen, and I strongly believe it will happen. We have to go through a process. So going through your earlier point about David and match day, I think people sometimes think it's easy. You just get on a plane, you come over, you go to a game. Well, the people David has to deal with tend to work in the week. So David has been to a lot of games this year. He's probably been to, Steve, I'm going to guess 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, he was at a Reading game most recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And he usually has to then go and see people in terms of financiers, in terms of councils, but he does have a public company to run as well. And having been a public company CEO twice, I don't think most people realise the responsibility of that. So I think David actually does make himself very available.
Can I just add something as well in terms of personality? You know, you ain't going to be Kent surfing in the away end with all the away supporters. It's different personalities, and Kent to go around and be that. He's a quieter personality in terms of, but yeah, you know, you're saying you got Kent Nigel again, but David's a lot. You know, not a lot, but he's a different type of character. It's just say, yeah, and let's be honest about it. Kent was and still is a one-off doing that. You ain't going to get a lot of clubs where the vice chairman will go into the away end or go into the supporters bar, etc., etc., etc. So maybe you accept that people got different personalities as well.
Okay, yeah. Let me just talk about Kent, because I again read stuff that occasionally irritates me. Kent was on a call yesterday morning at 4 a.m. I mean, 4 a.m. I mean, to talk about transfers. He's engaged, he's supportive. So I think we got a board, and you got Matt Porter as well, who could not be more engaged, and he's got a full-time job. So I read all the stuff. I kind of roll my eyes at people's amazement of putting these comments down. So I think I'd have to say I disagree with a lot of the stuff that's been written, because you're very fortunate at Leyton Orient, and I'm a Leyton Orient fan, to have someone like David around, and Kent.
David, Heavy D, do you want to come in with yours?
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks, Nigel, for acknowledging that the transparency hasn't been at the level that you obviously want this season. I think the problem is, like, speaking from the supporters' side, I think with the way this season has gone, people are worrying that we were, like now, especially, that we're going into the same situation as we were back in 2014, 2015, when Barry decided to leave the club. I know I'm not saying that the owners now are anything like that man, who I will not even mention his name. But the fact is, I think the fact that we don't really hear much from David apart from quotes, we didn't even know he's been to games this season. So not that he has to let us know where he is every day of the week. But I think maybe if it had just been that we knew he was at he was at the game, that obviously helps people. And one of the things I said to Steve at Doncaster was Dan McClune. I think most of us wouldn't know who Dan McClune was if we walked past him in the street. Like, I know he's joined the club as like head of recruitment, but nothing's really been done about who is Dan McClune. This is him. Like this, I know obviously he works with in tandem with Martin, but there's not been very much done about who he is and what, like. And as I said, none of us would really know who he was if we walked past him in the street.
So, Dee, so let me just push back on that, because I mean, do you know who the marketing person is? Do you know who Steve's finance person is? I mean, we've got a lot of employees who do a lot of important jobs at the club. I don't think you do need to know who Dan McClune is. I think you need to know who Martin Ling is. I think you need to know who the COO is, which is Steve. You need to know. You don't need to know all the employees. I mean, am I going to roll out the person who does all the invoices and things like that? I don't think you need to know all that. I mean, this is a football club, and we have people who do business at the football club, and I think, by the way, you should expect Dan McClune to be around at every other game except Leyton Orient because he's looking at players, and that's what he does do.
No, I will add to that. I think Dan has done an excellent job, and he talks a great game about football. So at some point in the future, I'd really like him to do something. I know George has talked about that the last couple of days.
Yeah, and also, just we are a better. I know Dan's took some. I don't do social media. I keep saying this. I've never read social media, so it don't bother me whether people are saying I'm brilliant or shit. So, but carry on. But we are a better unit with Dan McClune in it. He's made us a better unit just because where we are in the league, and Dan's come into us this year. It's nothing to do with Dan McClune. Dan McClune has made us a better unit. We are with by far a better organised recruitment than we've ever been before. Now, all right, you get some good ones and you get some bad ones, but as I say, the process is the process. It's nothing to do with the ability of Dan McClune. He makes us a better recruitment unit, along with Joe Austin, Steve Foster. I called them out earlier because they do a lot of work without being seen, and I don't want them to be seen. I don't mind Dan coming and give you an example of how we work, because I think that would be an insight that you'd enjoy.
Yeah, no, all I'd say, Martin, with that is I think that, like, it's, you know, from all your years in football, it's very easy when things are not going well, like they are now, for people to go, oh, that player who is on a load of money that never plays, or that person. It's easy for people to look at different people, whether it be in the boardroom or in the dressing room. It's easy for people to look at people and say, oh, why that person never, we don't even know who that is. What do they do for their money at the club? I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they. I'm sure everyone at the club works very hard for their money, but it's very easy when things are bad like they are now to
blame. All I say to you every day is, tell me who West Ham's head of recruitment is. Tell me, does the West Ham fans or a Premier League head of recruitment, do people know him? I don't think it's a person, as Nigel said. If he put a presentation on, but I don't think he needs to be seen like me, Nigel, Ken, David, Steve, Mark.
George, I've got to go in 5 minutes. Do you want to just pick some questions and fire them at me, if they're mine?
Okay, so we'll move on to stadium stuff. And some of these I think can be quite quick answers. So, Steve, new stadium, is that taking focus and or investment away from the playing squad?
Oh, no, not at all. They're completely mutually exclusive. No, if we weren't building a new stadium, there wouldn't be more money in the playing budget. That would just be building your foundations on sand. No, they're completely separate. I know the question is probably due to the fact we're not having the best season right now, but you've just got to take away short-term results from what we know is right in the long term.
Okay. I'll stay with you, Steve. Why are we giving so much focus to the new stadium when we are threatened with relegation? We won't need one if we get relegated.
It's a similar point, really. I think again, it's probably born out of concern around where we are in the league. But no, it doesn't stop us doing what we know is right with the training ground of the stadium. Long term, I don't think we should stop that to throw all efforts at. I mean, it's completely separate people and pretty separate efforts completely there. Relegation, of course, it would have detrimental impacts on the football club across all areas. That's why David was on the phone after the Port Vale game asking what we need to try and put things right.
Perfect. When will we be told where the new stadium site is going to be? I think we've covered that already.
Yeah.
I think we were hoping late summer.
Yeah, late summer was last update from. I didn't want to interrupt Nigel earlier. I got a note from Mark. I think late summer. Everything's going fine. There's no setback. It's just late summer is his latest estimate.
And then Nigel, what reassurances can you give to fans that the new stadium is good for Leyton Orient? How will we make sure that it is not a soulless bowl and that there will be fan involvement in the design process? A new stadium has worked for a club like Hull, but obviously went disastrously for somewhere like Darlington.
Okay, so I think sometimes it's in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, I was up at Bolton, which I think is a spectacularly good stadium. I was at Huddersfield. I think it's a spectacularly good stadium. I mean, last year I was at Barnsley where I saw Dave. And I think that's a bit of an odd stadium, but it's a big one. So I think it's tough to say what is a soulless bowl because it depends on how you define it. I think we're looking for a stadium with character. We're looking for a stadium that is primarily football. We're looking for a stadium that can take other sports because that's the way forward with revenue. But I think David in particular is very aware of the need to build in Leyton Orient's heritage and has talked about it very actively. So having said that, I don't know how you define a soulless bowl. I believe we will have a bowl that the fans have a chance to have input into. We will have a stadium that works for us and other sports. We'll have a stadium that hopefully can help make more money for Leyton Orient. And I think that's what we have to do.
I'll add a bit to that, George. We say, I'm going to need a swear jar for Soulless Bowl. We say it every day because we don't, obviously, none of us want that for the new stadium. You've got to learn from the mistakes of every other stadium that's come before you. If you talk to anyone that built any stadium, they have regrets about what's come before them. So we've got to learn from all those mistakes. We've got Populous architects on board, the best stadium designers in the world. They know what it takes to make a good stadium. They've been here for a site visit at Brisbane Road, which you might not think there's many things that might relate across, but they want to take what's important and what is characteristic about Brisbane Road and take that to a new place. So we're talking about the East Stand Gable, for example, the Supporters Club. All things are important to Leyton Orient. We want them represented in the new stadium because that's what soul comes from, right?
Can I just comment on a couple of other questions before I go? Slim Chickens. I think it's doubtful they're going to appear in the stadium. The economics being involved in the restaurant industry just don't work because we don't have enough games in the stadium mainly. Secondly, someone asked about how the merchandise in the shop never seems to match what is shown online and vice versa. As the chairman of Abercrombie and Fitch, only 25% of the items we have online are in a store. So that is not unusual because obviously you've got a bigger inventory online. I recognise that was also the other way around. And I know that Mark and Lucy work very hard at updating that all the time. I think that's it. So, I mean, I've got to go, guys. So thank you for your time. I don't know whether Steve and Martin have to go, but
I'll stay around for a bit, sure. If people want to stay on, that's all right.
Thanks for your questions. I think we took on board most of the things you said. I'm looking forward to a much better second half of the season. And thank you for all your support. And for those who badger me when I come back from an away game like Heavy Dave, thank you.
Thanks, Nigel.
Nigel, I think we just don't want another London Stadium. That's the Soulless Bowl.
Pardon?
I said, if you want to know about a Soulless Bowl, I think we're just worried that we're going to get a mini London Stadium. So that's what I think most people are worried about.
I mean, I've only ever been to that stadium in the Olympics because I don't fancy going to watch West Ham, but it looks absolutely dreadful on the TV, and I do agree that's probably a soulless bowl. See you guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Nigel. Steve, so last few on the stadium. We've had a couple of questions around the funding of the new stadium, how that will work, whether that will have any impact on the club's other operations.
No, it's completely exclusive, and David and his team in the States are working on that. And Mark's closer to it, if I'm honest, so I don't want to give a disingenuous answer, but it's going to be privately funded, not public funding, and he's somewhere along the line with that.
Perfect, thank you. And another question around stadium and training grounds, over which one we're prioritising at the moment.
No, not neither. They're both running at the same. We're in tandem, really. We've had more updates on the stadium in the last few months than on the training ground, so it might feel like one's running faster than the other. We've been actively searching for new training ground sites. We think we found a couple, like I mentioned earlier, that might be ideal for us. So hopefully that might pick up pace, and we'll be in there fairly soon. But no, they're not detracting from the other. We know the training ground is a place of work for most of our staff and players, so we want it to be the best it can be. and David's fully on board. He's ready to go when we've got the right place to act on it.
Perfect. Thank you. Craig, sorry, I missed you. Had your hand up.
That's all right, George. It's just on the stadium. So, and Steve, appreciate you've just said about Mark's probably your man for some of these questions. But just wondered if you could give us a little bit of a flavour around, I suppose, kind of payback on the stadium. I'm probably coming from a perspective of I'm definitely not in the negative band around the stadium. I know there is some negativity around it, but I think it's a really positive step. It's the only way the club's going to grow. So I think long may that continue. But just in terms of payback, I'm just using Brentford as an example for little snippets that I've heard around that cost. I think around 80 million. That was several years ago. Presumably it's going to cost a fair bit more than that now, and I think maybe some supporters are a little bit kind of concerned around the amount of debt that will be linked to the club, and how's that money coming back on the basis that we're losing money at the moment. Appreciate the operations will be completely different, there'll be different revenue streams and so on, but is there anything you can kind of share around the vision for actually, there's going to be a lot of money going out, let's call it 100 million potentially plus. Where's that payback coming in, and also how does the security, I suppose, work with Orient as a football club around our link to that stadium, and risk around if there was a change of heart or later down the line, what would be stopping if it's owned by a private entity or something along those lines? What's kind of stopping Orient potentially being at risk of being booted out the stadium and being in a bit of trouble on that front?
There's a lot in that, Craig. I'll try and tackle as much of it as I can. As you say, Mark might be the man for some of that. On the last point, most of you would have read something about the new football regulator is coming in. Any ground move from any football club will come with strict requirements. That means that there's protections in place to make sure that a football club's never homeless, it's never extorted for outrageous rent or anything like that. So hopefully that gives some comfort from the outside. There's no pressure on the inside, but from the external side, there's going to be protections there in place. I don't know if I was at Spurs from 2014 through past to 22. So while the new stadium was just in the ground, and then came through to this. So I've got workings from those early days from 5 years before the stadium, and you'd laugh at them how far out of date they are within 5 years of the stadium being built. Talk about payback, talk about revenue streams. Everything changes so fast. So we obviously went through models, and we go through models now, but they become out of date so quickly. All I'll say is there's another announcement about Legends Global being brought on board. They've worked on the new camp and other big stadiums, look at the commercial viability, etc. So what they are doing now, they've been working with us and with Mark in the last few months to take our current database, etc., and extrapolate and look at what that looks like for the new stadium and what that might paint a picture for revenues, etc., going forward. And then in the next few months, they're going to start reaching out to a fan base, engaging with our current database, with a local community, and with local businesses to find out what the appetite is for people that aren't currently involved in Orient to get involved, or businesses and people. And that will start painting more of a picture of what the revenue structure's like, and if there's appetite for concerts, etc. So that's a big piece of work they've been instructed to do. So I mean, that will be a lot finer tuned at that point. But anything I've got now is just changing all the time, I'd say. So hopefully you don't think I'm ducking that, but it does move quick.
I've just got a bit of homework for everybody, right? So this is the homework. Do the 92 league clubs. How many of them have got new stadiums? I don't know the answer to this, so it's homework for all years. And how many of them are soulless bowls? Because you picked out Darlington so far, and I think MK Dons could possibly go in there. West Ham because of the Olympic Stadium. So the percentage of clubs that have moved and not been in soulless bowls, I can promise you that for me is whenever I speak to David, and obviously I've been connected for 30 years now, as well as, Nigel's been there longer than me, but I've been an employee for 30 years, all but 7. So he does ask a lot of questions, and he's determined to make it right for everybody that has got Orient going through them. And I think I can maybe go along with views as being part of that for the time that I've served at the football club. So there's not many soulless bowls out there, and I promise you that this will not be that.
Thank you, chaps. I'll ask if anyone's got any more stadium questions now, but I should also say Mark Devlin did ask me to pass on his apologies. He's currently 5 hours ahead or behind. I can't remember which way, so he wasn't able to join.
Sports news on every channel. There's someone that must be VC shopping channel on every game, and that's very funny. I can't say it's not, but we'll try and stop it happening. We'll try and block it out if we can. East Stand, we spent about 500 grand on the East Stand 2 years ago to try and make it as spacious as possible. We've hit the maximum what we can do there, and it's still very, very busy in there. It's hard to get a drink, it's hard to get food in there half time. I understand that, and we've looked at overflow as well. That becomes a challenge from licensing if you're trying to have people smoking or selling food and drink on the streets, and it's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. But we'll look at it again. But I think last time we looked, it'll be around 100 and 150k for the year to try and just have that part of Brisbane Road blocked off for our use, because obviously it means it changes the access, etc. in there. It all comes back to the stadium around, like, we're completely landlocked with space. We'd love a bigger fan zone. We haven't really got a fan zone on site. I know April's doing a lot of work with a fan engagement team. We're hopefully going to have a proper fan zone in place before the end of the season of a new Coronation Square. The newly opened, it looks great, but it's a perfect spot for us to have some activations outside in that square there, with some refreshments and bits and bobs. So we're going to have to think outside the box, outside of our current template to make that work. But the East Stand and all the concourses are very tough. You can't have a drink if you're in view of the pitch. So in the West Stand, you've got the two concourse bars, but we can't have anyone going any further out than that. Creates a huge challenge. Overflows, I might have to come back to that to try and find out if that's an option.
Good stuff. Thank you. I'll stick with you, Steve. We had one question around the new Labour budget and if that will impact us in any way. Is that anything you can say on that? Is it too early at this stage?
The minimum wage is increasing, so that'll impact us. I'm not afraid with any other rules that particularly impact us. I might make myself look stupid. I don't think there's anything. Anyone on the call asked that question. I don't know.
Okay.
All right.
Next one is around a disabled supporters association or group. Who at the club will help to set something like that up, so that disabled people can have a voice to express things that are needed?
I know the club and the trust were working together. I know, Ian, I'll come to your question in a minute. The club, they were working towards that midway through last year, I think, so we'll pick that back up again. And with the formation of the new fan advisory board, it's important we have a representative from that group on board so that they can be the sounding board for any accessibility issues we've got coming in. And I mean, when we get closer to the new stadium, there'll need to be a specific working group to look at. It's going to be a much bigger project to make sure that it caters for everyone's needs. That's a bit further down the line yet. And we mentioned last time there was an accessibility audit that took place late last year. They're due to come back in for a match day survey, which is the second part of that audit, and we should get the results of that back at the end of this month. So, and that comes with a list of recommendations. So hopefully there's some useful bits to help us improve there.
Noreen, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so that was my question. I know we done a meeting last year, and I know only 2 disabled turn up, because obviously for some disabled before a game would be better for a meeting because they'll already be at the game. But it wasn't even accessible for the person in the mobility scooter to come in. There was no ramp. So straight away for a meeting, you can't, it's not practical. I've already offered to come in and help set up the group. I don't want paying, completely voluntary, and do anything I can to help with it. I mean, I know the club quite well. I worked there as a steward for many years and then just stayed on as a fan. for my sins. But yeah, I'm just here to help in any way I can.
Amazing, thank you. Appreciate your help, and we'll yeah, if you haven't passed me your email already, Noreen, please pass it on, and we'll pick this up after that. Appreciate your offer.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Noreen.
That's all right.
Lingy, we've had a question on injuries. I mean, we touched earlier about Aaron Conley and Idris being out for quite an extended period of time. So I had a couple of questions on updates on where those guys are at.
Yeah, so Iddy is in front of Aaron. Iddy's actually out on the grass, but don't get excited in terms of he's out on the grass, because that's the very start of the process. I spoke to Keaton today, actually, in terms of return. Middle of March for Iddy, and well, he said early March. Then his next sentence was middle of March. But Keaton is a physio, and they always say 2 weeks worse than what it actually is, because it looks like they're really good when they get him back 2 weeks early. So I think Iddy's got a chance for early March, 1st of March. Aaron Conley is towards the back end of March. Keaton's saying he's 2 to 3 weeks behind. They're going, both of them, along with some other players, are going to do some warm weather training in Dubai when we shut down for the 10 days for not playing the game next Saturday. So they're after the game, the gaffers are letting them go out to Dubai for 4 days, just for Iddy and Aaron and Reg. Change your environment when you're in that treatment room every day and people are going out to train. It's so, it's really soul destroying for them. So they're going to go out for Dubai for 4 days. And I said to Iddy, if you go out to Dubai for 4 days, that means you'll be back the 1st of March. So we ain't paying for it, by the way. They're paying for it itself, but we're allowing them to go.
Just a question.
Sorry, there is a physio and a fitness coach going out. We are paying for them to go out.
I just saw a question flash up on screen. I'm not sure who that came from. Just around Jordan Graham as well, Lingy. How's he getting on?
Jordan was on the grass today at the ground. He's getting to the stage where he is looking to join back into training. I think he's still a couple of weeks away from training. He's doing individual stuff still at the moment. And then Keaton likes, not just Keaton, but physios like to fetch him phase back, so they come back and maybe join part of the training, or be the spare. If they've got an 8v8 going on, then maybe become the spare player that plays for both teams, that type of stuff. So Jordan, he's on the grass, and he's looking to do some sort of return to training in terms of. He's probably, I don't know if Keaton still thinks so. I think he's similar to Aaron Conley, and even a little bit later, possibly.
Craig?
So just see with results recently not quite going our way. There's been, some certain corners online and around the stadium and so on, kind of questioning Richie's, I suppose, suitability to continue at the club. I'm not one of those. I think we do very, very well to get anyone better into the club. The football he's got us playing over the last few years, and I think football fans are very fickle. At times, we could do a hell of a lot worse, and there'd be no guarantee of anyone new coming in doing any better with a particular group of players. But there is just one observation that said, just slight negative, and a few people I think have kind of observed, is around kind of recent singling out of players. And for those of us outside of football, if you're in a workplace and you've got your director or your exec or someone that's kind of calling individuals out in front of a team, persistently, it doesn't massively do morale a great good, particularly for those individual players. and we might be seeing that with a couple of the players this season. So it was just a question around is that something that's been picked up, and you don't want to change Richie. I think Martin, you said earlier, for all of Richie's positives, you do on the flip side with the passion and everything else, you do get some negatives with that, and probably that fits within that bracket. But it's just, is it something that's been picked up as a
Yeah, we know it's as I say, his strengths are sometimes his weakness in terms of talking about it. But I look at it in terms of, does that negativity that he's got, that he said, carry on into the training during the week? And the answer is no. You know what I mean? Sometimes that period after the games, I think is, it's easy. I mean, it's easy. I mean, I've done it for 15 years, and sometimes you have to play a dead bat there, an immediate dead bat. Richie's not that type of person. He will say as it is, and that's the way he does it. And he's done that all the time. All the time he's been here, he's done exactly the same. Go back through his videos and obviously it's always magnified when results ain't going well. But if I felt, or the board felt, that Richie took what he's sometimes is said into the training ground or into the players going forward, then I think it could develop into a problem. But it's not a problem. And as you rightly say, I think that Richie has took us from League Two into League One into the playoffs. All right, we're having a blip, and I've already done this rally call. This job for both me and for yous. Your job is supporting. Is always the easiest thing to do when things are going well, and I think my most important part of my job is to be there as a support and a soundboard when it ain't going so well. So you as supporters have got to see that. We can all pick holes into, if anyone wants, if you're thinking that we're thinking about Richie's not the right person from the club, that couldn't be further from the truth, if I'm totally honest. And I do hear what you're saying sometimes, but I don't see that followed down after Richie has expressed that. It's not followed through into, that person is now training in the far corner on his own on the training pitch, or he's being ignored. It's always about, if the result ain't right and the performance ain't right, it's a Monday morning of trying to get to the bottom of where the problem started and going through the video and then building from there. So yeah, I mean, Richie's the gaffer for us for a long time going forward.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Liggy. Steve, I'll come to you for the next one. It's around this season's kits. One supporter said there was lots of dissatisfaction over this year's kits. How do we stop this in the future? And can we have more retro products, please?
Okay, all right. I don't think you can ever have a kit that pleases everyone. The kit sales are up 35% year on year, which, considering we haven't got a city or a playoffs or anything like that, is pretty phenomenal. I don't think that the kit was helped by an unhelpful leak in the summer, which is regrettable, doesn't help the club. But to come past that, and then I think when people see the kits, they've obviously all been received really positively. We haven't got many left of any of them. We're almost all sold out. So I disagree on that front. We've got a nice new retro range now. And will we do more in the future? Yes, definitely. And if there's certain designs or certain kits people want replicated, please email. I think it's retail@leightonorient.com.
Thank you, Steve. Liggy, another footballing one. So how do we monitor our younger players when they head out on loan?
Yeah, we have. They will be scouted. Or scouts will go and watch them. There's also we get clips from all their games. In terms of clubs as low as level free of filming the games, and we get clips and then they get feedback. But we're not got no. If we've probably got about 8 out at the moment. If you below the ones that you see in terms of the boys that are scholars, first, second, and third year scholars. But we work on a rota. We make sure that we're following them. We make sure we're feeding back, and we've also got the clips coming in. So it's important for us. It's no good. My belief is that every scholar in his second year of his scholarship should go and play men's football. So that's an easy sentence to say. To action is harder, but we do it. I think that even we've got the 21s, which makes it a little bit easier that they don't have to go. It's not so important they go out, but I still think men's football and the result on a Saturday in a league table is better than 21s football all day long. And the 21s football is really up to Christmas or New Year. So Pratt's has got one. We're still in the London Senior Cup, so he's got one fixture that's definite, and then we will arrange friendlies. But most of our 21s are out on loan now.
Craig?
Yeah, cheers. Not a particularly critical one, but just on the subject of kind of youth team players. And I think there's been some communications recently around getting supporters down and watching some of the matches, which is great, and I'll try and do that at some point. Is there any chance, or have you looked into the possibility of kind of highlights from those games, or streaming any of those games for some of us that might be interested in kind of seeing how the younger lot are getting on, or is that logistically quite challenging, or challenging for other reasons, or do we not want to broadcast our best players to everyone and the scouts are on there picking them up?
I'm not so sure. I don't know. I'm going to talk before George, but George might have the answer. I'm not so sure you can put the under 18s on this, George, can you?
Yeah, so I can answer this one, Craig. We can. There's no sort of safeguarding issues or anything there. Streaming is a challenge logistically, because there's not always a high tower at a viewpoint or internet access, the main thing for streaming for where the under 18s play. And the footage we get, so the reason we don't do it at the moment, although this could change in the future, is the footage we get is the analyst footage. So when you look at the camera, you'll see both goals pretty much on screen at the same time. So it's just not the best viewing experience. But I mean, if there's demand for it from supporters, then that's definitely something we can look at in the future. But yeah, just as a caveat, I will say you will have to be very close to your screen to really see what's going on.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I can imagine that on the viewing experience. I mean, yeah, if maybe even if they weren't the best quality, if there was a chance to get some clips or highlights or something occasionally, I think that would probably be welcomed by some supporters. But yeah, as I say, it's not a critical one. It'd just be kind of a nice to have.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can look at. I'm just literally making a note of it now.
Cheers.
Last couple I've got, Steve, Forever Roy. How's Forever Roy getting on? I think that might have been submitted by you, Heavy D.
You remember Heavy D? Have you signed up?
Yes, yes, I have. I signed up a couple weeks ago.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, we're over 500 members now. So we're 2 months in, and we're bringing in I think it's about 10 people a day that are signing up on average at the moment. So it's going well. I mean, our target was to get to, the target was to get to 1881 for obvious reasons, and we'll celebrate when we get there. It feels like we're on a decent course already at this early stage. And in terms of what it's a direct debit scheme, so we've only had a month or two of direct debit payments from 500 people. So we're not talking mega money yet, but it will build up. But in terms of the academy and the sports science guys have got wish lists and requests to what they want that money to go towards. So we'll start putting out stories about where that contribution goes towards. But I mean, first thing we've done, I don't think it went out anywhere, but it was we got an extra piece of gym equipment for, I think it's for Aaron's got a specific fancy leg raise, effectively like a more sophisticated leg raising machine to help him with his quad to recovery. So that's the first thing that's gone in.
Wow.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. So last couple are two football ones. I'll give this one to both of you, Steve and Lingy. A couple of fans have said it feels like there've been more long-term injuries this season. And why do we think that is?
We're looking, we're forever looking at what we can do to prevent it, or maybe, and we're the most advanced we've ever been scientifically, and I mean medically scientifically. There's a fear, not a fear. There's a feel that the training ground pitches where we are they're not substandard. That's the wrong word, but they're not brilliant, and they're on a slope. And is that got something to do with it? I'm not so sure. We're doing. When you think about the injuries, you got Reg was, a contact, wasn't it, in terms of how he did it, or you come down and done it. Iddy was in a match. I think if the three long-term injuries was, I ain't going to name names, but if they were three lesser players, it may not feel so bad. I don't think we've had any more this year, but the three long-term ones probably have gone to three starters and three of our big hitters in Reg, Connolly and El Mazzuni. So, yeah, sometimes I don't really know. You speak to every club and you have to take the rough and the smooth with injuries. With sports science is as high it's ever been, medically as high as ever been. Can the training pitches be better? Yes, they can. I'm not so sure that has an effect on it, to be honest. And when you look at where the injuries come from, Reg was playing. I can't remember. How did Connolly do it? I've gone blank in my head, George.
I think did it happen at Salford? Was it a Salford game afterwards? I think. Can't really remember. I've tried to get the Salford game out of my memory.
Yeah,
obvious reasons.
Right. That was shit. But no, yeah. So there is the three long terms are punishing long termers, aren't they? In the play, well, they are. We can't see any correlation of what we can do. Can we make facilities better? But we are trying to go. Training ground for me, and I'm going to say this, is more important than the ground, but that's just me because we're there Monday to Friday, or we're there 5 days a week. Stadium's massively important. Don't get me wrong, but I think that we can't become what we want to become as a football club without having the training ground to the standard that we want. And Dave is fully aware of that. So Steve explained that earlier. So yeah, I don't really know the answers, George, but the long termers have us in terms of who they are. I accept.
All right, I'll add two things, Martin. I've said I spoke to someone at Blackpool at the start of the year. I think they started the season without even kicking a ball with 9 injured players. I mean, Brownie was playing right back. It was crazy. It happened. It's a contact sport, so I don't think we're the only club that has this. Even though we do feel when we're focused so much on our club that it's only affecting us. I think sometimes it's just why there's such a different range in training ground pitches to different pitches. We've seen in the last few weeks different quality pitches, and that can aggravate things. It's Saturday, Tuesday. And I pulled it up earlier because Nathan in our sports science team did a really good report for us in the summer last year. So it's 24-25 data looking at what improvements we made since the first year in League One. I thought it was worth having this ready. So in last year, we ran 10% more distance on average than the first season of League One. We had better player availability, 25% increase year on year from year 1 to year 2 in League One. And we did a lot of work to try and reduce illnesses. So we reduced the illness, like missing days of training and matches, by 40% through a mixture of different things. So I think the team there are doing a really good job of that. I haven't got this year's data. We've had a similar number of injuries, I think, really, with 2 or 3 key players, but there's not been lots of other long-term ones in amongst it. I think when it comes out in the wash, there might be some small improvement there as well, even though it doesn't feel like it because of the 3 injuries we've had there.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what I was trying to say. I think the magnitude of the people that are injured is making it feel worse than it actually is. I feel.
Heavy D.
Just to go on with that, Martin, this season we seem to have have a lot more players that are going down with cramp. I was just wondering if the club have tried to find out why that's happening and why.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I agree. There has been play. I mean, Brandon Cooper, going back to Brandon Cooper, I know he ain't here anymore, was forever suffering with it. But we have had more this year than we've had before, if I'm honest with you. And Nathan and that are looking into some of the nutrition side of what they're eating, or what ain't what they're eating. They ain't eating things that they're eating proper stuff. But is there maybe something that could be added to that to make it less likely? But there has been a correlation where I feel there has been a few more. Well, there is. I ain't saying I feel there is. There has been more people that have suffered with it, but they are looking at that to see the reason why, because it's very unusual.
Okay, cheers.
Steve, I'll come to you first for this one, and then Lingy, I'll come to you afterwards. So given the talk in recent years about Leyton Orient challenging to become a championship club, most championship clubs have a Category 2 academy, with some even being Category 1. What's the vision for our academy?
I think if you ask every fan on here, do they want more homegrown academy players in the first team, they'd definitely say yes. I think that's a massive. I'm a Crew fan originally, so it's a big part of my football DNA growing up was watching academy players come through and play for the team. One of my proudest moments as a fan was we fielded an all academy 11 in a league game in 2013, which is one of the big achievements we celebrate. So it's massively important to me personally, and I think it is for everyone on the board and the management and the fans as well. The big limitation on category of academy is restrictions of facilities. You need a domed pitch, which we haven't got the space for. We can't do currently. But the moves we're looking at the moment would give us more space and would potentially unlock all of those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, same again. I mean, with the new training ground, the part of it that I've added to it, one of the parts of it ain't just me that demands this, but is that we facilitate that, we make the facilities that can be Cat 2 ready, and that's sort of things. It's nothing to do with players. It's nothing to do with. It's to do with facilities. We can't do a Cat 2 where we are at the moment, or with what the facilities we've got, by opening the new training ground or going forward to the new training ground. Is a time that goes hand in hand. And yeah, I think that a Cat, because we are a very, very good Cat 3, but you do attract a little bit better. Where it helps is if you're Cat 3 and players get released from Cat 1s all the way from 9-year-olds to 18-year-olds, they'd always go to a Cat 2 before they go to a Cat 3, if that makes sense. So the boys that are playing at the Tottenhams, Arsenals, that get released, and there's some quality players. I mean, Zagabirio was released from Tottenham at 15, for instance. So there's an awful lot of boys that do, but they normally bounce to a 2 before they would bounce to a 3. So you would get a better quality option from them bigger clubs as well, because there's a lot of, because teams like Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, they're old, probably 80 under 9s, under 10s, under 11s, and then it has to be reduced as they go up. But they hold players, but then they start to come to Cat 2 clubs as they get released, and because it's very unusual that a boy would come into Leyton Orient at 9 and then playing the first team. I think there's only been 2, I think, one of them being Jaden Sweeney. With the training ground. Sorry, Jules, that was a long answer.
Yeah. I'm off camera, so everyone probably wants to go to bed and leave this. But Yeah, two things to add. Yeah, it gives us more protection for our own academy players as well as a Cat 2 club getting approached and poached from other football clubs from Category 1, because we're in a great catchment area for talent, but it's just holding on to them that we struggle with at the moment. But it's not all about category of academy though. We've been in the under-21s Premier League Cup and we've competed really well against strong Category 2 academies this year. So it's not something we get fixated on. The thing we want is the pathway to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you, chaps. Steve, in the comments, a couple of operational ones for you. So, fan Wi-Fi in the ground is difficult to connect to. Is this something that we can have a look at?
Yeah, it's probably volume of when 9,000 people are in there. It works absolutely fine when there's a smaller number of people in there. But yeah, it's probably just a volume thing. So I'll get the guys back in to test that. We got it back up and running this summer, but yeah, I've had a couple of the same bits of feedback that it needs to be beefed up.
Thank you very much. And then last one we've got in the comments in this call is there's been a resident DJ at most home games this season playing music before the game at halftime and full time. Is this a temporary measure until the stadium speaker system is invested in to a degree?
It wasn't intended to be that way. I like anyone on the call got an opinion on the DJ. I like the DJ personally. I think he adds a bit of nice atmosphere. And our PA system currently isn't very good. Mark's talked about it loads of times, how expensive it is to replace the system. And we have started routing through some of the pre and post match and some of the announcements from Barry through the system because it works a lot better. So it might be something we do take along with us and just put some speakers in each corner if that's just a cheaper way of fitting it. I think he's been a good addition anyway, and it's something we'll continue. Jack's got
that would be
might
better.
tell me he hates it.
No, I was going to say that's one of the big improvements in the fact of having the resident DJ, because you do get more of an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Rather than the old creaky sort of 80s, 90s speaker down your ear hole. But yeah, I agree in terms of like a speaker in each corner, just to give that more eerie, not eerie, but more of a
bit more balance.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, a more in-depth experience, so you get that feel as if you're in a stadium. I mean, you're never going to get the same as the Spurs and what's not, but you get my drift.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Right, that's all the questions I've got in front of me. Anything from anyone else before we finish up?
My tea's on the table, so I'm going. So, if anyone wants a question, do it now for hold your peace.
It's been a long few days, Martin, hasn't it?
I nearly swore there. You know me, I did swear there, but it was only after the swear. Yeah, the last 3 days have been horrendous. Not today so bad, but the last. Yeah, okay. We all suffer together.
Right, sounds like everyone needs to go and get their dinner.
If this format's worked better for people, I think it's all right. I think it's been quite good. We'll pick it up for next time.
I think it's been really good.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks
for joining, everyone.
See you later, all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.